good afternoon, and for those of you who are in Europe or the UK, good afternoon, and welcome to the latest in the Deckhive Introduces webinar series. And today I'm delighted to have two guests. So we have Daniel and Carsten, who are colleagues at Holisticon and based in Germany. And they're going to be talking to us about the Liberating Structures design cards, which I'm really excited to learn more about, because I've heard lots of people talking very, very positively about liberating structures as a technique and a set of tools, and I don't know much about it. So I'd love to learn a bit more and see how we can use this digital card deck within the Deckhive environment. So thanks both for joining me. It's really nice to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, pleasure. So I guess just as an introduction, it'd be good to hear about what you guys do, and what's the world that you live in from a work perspective, that's kind of made the Liberating Structures toolkit be so relevant for you. So do you want to say a bit about what you guys do on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So we both work as consultants in a consultancy based in the northern part of Germany. It's called Holisticon. And we both work mainly as agile coaches or helping transforming organizations, and are kind of pioneers in the realm of liberating structures. In our context, we've been working with liberating structures for about 6 years now. Kind of early adopters, giving the timeline of liberating structures. And Carsten, do you want to add anything?
Perhaps some notes about how we found liberating structures useful for our work. For me personally, it's become more and more important because we are agile coaches. So agility is being scaled more and more during the last years, and it's not only having meetings or events, how you call it in Scrum, with a small amount of people. So let's say, I don't know, with one team, up to 10 people. But scaling means that you have to facilitate meetings with hundreds of people. So an overall retrospective with, I don't know, 300 people, which can be a nightmare if you don't have the right tool set. So this is how we began to get to know liberating structures and learn to love it, I must say.
Yeah, it really was the answer for my personal nemesis, like the large group facilitation with more than 40, 50, 60 people. That's where I caught fire. In the beginning, at least.
So for anyone who hasn't really come across the agile methodology, so how would you describe that in a very short sentence or two? About what is agile as a methodology?
Agile is about well, how to put it? It's about self-organizing teams, teams that are able to decide what to do, how to do, and in which time frame they do it, and in certain time frames. And so they need a lot of time for organizing themselves and for feedback cycles to just talk about how we can improve our work. What are the means for us to get even better? So this permanent, constant wish to get better and to improve your results. This is, I think, the most important aspect of agile, which means, as I just said, spending a lot of time together and being focused on certain aspects of your work.
Okay. So what about liberating structures then? How did you, because you didn't create liberating structures as a concept, did you? So tell us about how you came across it, and yeah, what's the origin story?
It was basically created or curated by two great people, which are Keith McCandless and Henry Lemanowitz. Both were like at the top of their careers, when they more and more realized that what they were doing in their world, like Henry was a top manager at the pharmaceutical company, and just realized that all the decisions he made as a top manager didn't have the impact on the people who really were doing the work or creating value. And so he went on a journey, and Keith as well, for another of an explanation why that didn't work out as he intended. And so they came across the realm of the complexity theory, and they met there, and they just try to find methods who work in a complex setting. So which work in a setting where you don't know where there isn't a singular perfect answer, but there are multiple options, and you just can't say which one is the right option. And maybe there isn't even a right option. So you have to find out together what experiment, what thesis you want to try out, and then only afterwards you can decide if that made sense. So it's much more about sense making than about decision making, and that's one of the fundamentals of liberating structures. It evolved out of the complexity theory, which is also pretty much the foundation for agile methodologies, by the way.
Okay, so there are a number of different structures then within this framework. How many are there altogether?
It's 33. Somehow, at least 33 were described by Keith and Henry in their original book. It has been 33. They were improving over the years, so they just didn't come up with new methods and wrote a book about it, but they really field tested them for many years, mostly in the health sector. And in the end, there were 33 methods which made it into their original book. So the original set of liberating structures is 33, and these 33 are also currently covered in the card deck we are talking about here.
Great. So what was the background to creating the card deck then? How did that come to be?
Well, it's been a bit selfish because we needed a tool to talk about making up workshops for our customers. So we knew the 33 liberating structures quite well. But when it comes to designing a workshop, be it a 1-hour retrospective or be it a 3-day workshop about the upcoming strategy for a company, you need to prepare it quite well. And we found that designing such a workshop is best when you do it in a group, so with several people. And if you, kind of one guy makes a proposal, what a string could look like, and another one has an additional idea. We're going to show you in a minute how this might work. And so constantly, improving the kind of structures you're going to use makes it necessary to have some haptic or haptical help to do it. So we just designed the cards with the structures, and what we are going to do if we are designing a workshop is that we take the cards in our hands. Well, I just have a card deck here, the physical card deck, and then we go out and say I would go with structure 33 or with structure 1 to all or something like that, and then we lay them out and discuss several variants or alternatives altogether in a group.
Okay.
Maybe I just want to shortly add to that, that is also really one core part about liberating structures, that they are structures to liberate our interactions, and they are very consciously structured the way they are built. So each of these methods has a very specific purpose, a very specific goal, And this also enforces you to really think about what you want to achieve with a group. And that's the basic idea. So what Carsten just said, that building strings means just that you try to find a fitting succession of singular methods which fulfill a purpose for the group you're working with. So first you have that tiny sub goal, and then the next tiny sub goal, which builds on the first one. And so you go stepwise and very consciously from knowing nothing to achieving some kind of result. And liberating structures really enforces you to do that, because the way they are built, most of them only work for a very specific problem or challenge.
So does that mean that you as a facilitator in a session then have that control, or it works best if you have the control then about which structures are on the table as options to work with?
Yeah. So normally you would prepare, just like everybody of us does prepare a workshop and has something in mind, or if we jump into the next meeting and then it's just going to be a certain structure present. Like now we're doing kind of an interview or presentation. With liberating structures, you're also making these decisions as a facilitator, what you want to do with the group. So you make these decisions. Mm-hmm. Unless you have a very experienced group, then they can make these decisions on the fly for themselves. Mm. It's an ideal world.
So knowledge of the framework and the cards is very important, I guess, then, to know what the different options are available.
Yeah, it certainly helps to at least have a basic knowledge of how one of the structure works, so that you're able to understand the other ones. So you don't need to know them, all of them, by heart. I don't either, but I did every structure once in a while, and so I just get reminded of how it works when I have a look at the cards.
I see. So how long ago was it that you created the cards now? It was a few years ago.
Can't say, 4 years.
4 to 5 years, yeah.
4 to 5 years, yeah.
Okay. And they've mostly been used in a printed form, and you've sold those kind of all around the world, I understand. Mm-hmm. So, and have you had much feedback from people who've used the cards?
Well, they really love them, because we're just knowing the structures is not the same as having them in their hands and just playing around with it and sifting through the card deck and just rearrange them on a table with 2 or 3 people. This is really helpful and helps you thinking the string through and just amending you in the group. Yeah.
Great. Well, I'll share my screen.
Yes. Yeah.
So great. Hopefully you can see. Can you see this now?
Yeah.
So on the left-hand side, just for those who aren't familiar with Deckhive, you can see we have the 2 different sub-decks of the cards here. So we can click on the top one there that's colorful, and then scroll through all of the different cards which have the different structures on. And we'll talk through the different color coding and so on in a moment. But also it's worth mentioning that we have these instruction cards underneath there, don't we, which are the gray ones. So those could be maybe useful in certain circumstances for particularly people who are less familiar, I guess, with the deck. So it's worth mentioning that they're there. Yeah, do you want to talk us through kind of the structure of the deck and kind of how you've designed it and how it all kind of fits together, and we can maybe look at the individual cards as we go through.
Sure. So as you mentioned, there are a couple of instruction cards which are just in a very shortest way describe what liberating structures are, what the card deck is about, what strings are, what we just said, that's just a combination of a couple of liberating structures to achieve something, a bigger challenge with a group. and also where you get more information. So that's the explanatory part of the deck. And then you have the cards which are depicting the liberating structures, and there you see on the front side the icon, which is helpful if you're into the structures already, if you know them by heart, that you more easily can detect which card you're looking for. And of course there's a title. The title usually already hints for what that liberating structure might be useful. For example, one of the most basic ones is called impromptu networking. So spontaneous networking, which is basically what that structure does. And then you have these, maybe you could zoom in a little. Yeah, that's even better. Then you see how long that method roughly would take. Impromptu networking says it takes 20 minutes. So you have a rough indication how long that would take within your meeting, within your workshop. And then there's this purpose statement, which also indicates pretty good what's going to happen, or what is made possible through that liberating structure. So all these factors are a way to find a fitting liberating structure. So you have the name, which could be a hint. You have the purpose statement, which is a very good hint on what structure to use if you don't know them by heart. And then if you know them by heart, the symbol and the name is really helpful. And then on the back side, you see how liberating structures are structured. So there's always an indication of how the space and the material, so what kind of space and what kind of material you need for facilitating the structure. It could be something like you need tables, or you need chairs, or you need, I don't know, Post-its or whatever. And then there's always an invitation, which indicates what kind of interaction awaits the participants. And it also often poses a direct questions to the audience or to the participants. In this example is of impromptu networking. There's a basic invitation which comes with the structure, which is called, so what big challenge do you bring to this webinar? What do you hope to get and give from this short webinar? That's the invitation. And then the main part is how the structure works. So what are the different steps? How long does each step take? How is the group reorganized in smaller groups and bigger groups? And just making up your mind on your own.
Okay.
It's the two parts.
So that's one of the pink cards, but so there is a theme for that color, which I think is kind of highlighted on the matchmaker card here, isn't it?
Right. So this basically is one of several matchmakers. Stop me if I make it too complicated, but this matchmaker is an indication for what kind of challenge a certain liberating structure might be useful. So for example, impromptu networking, how did you call that color? I'd say it's red, you say it's pink. Let's go for pink. So this reddish pink color is the matchmaker category of sharing something. So you can share information, you can share ideas, challenges, experiences, spread ideas. So if you have something, if you have a problem in a workshop or in a challenge with your group that you need to share some kind of information, ideas, and so on, then you could have a look at all the red cards. That could be a good indicator. There are other colors like blue if you want to reveal something, find new ideas. If you want to analyze something, it's the green category. If you want to help or get help, it's the yellowish one, and you can also strategize or plan something. So you have these 6 categories to make a match with a fitting liberating structure.
Okay.
If any expert of liberating structures is here, there might be an outcry, because these categories are meant to be a help for when you start with liberating structures, and they're kind of dumbing down the potential of liberating structures. So you could use many of the liberating structures in one category for any other problem of any other category. But it's a good start. It can be a good start. That's why the colors are there.
Great. Okay. So the other colors we have, so the blue ones, reveal. This is an example of that. So do you want to talk us through each of these other cards briefly, just to give a flavor of the different kinds of things that are in each of the categories?
Sure. Carsten, you want to continue, or should I go on?
Yeah, I can do that. So this is a structure called one to for all. This is the most basic and most known of all liberating structures, and this is about, well, I would say a method for scaling something. So a basic principle of liberating structures is, before you start talking in a group about a certain topic, just make up your mind on your own. So take 1 minute to reflect on the question or on the invitation and make your own, make up your own mind, and just, if you jot down some notes or something, and then you talk in a pair. This is, the timings are 1 minute alone, 2 minutes in a pair, 4 minutes in a foursome, and then 5 minutes altogether in the whole group. And this is all about, on the one hand, activating people. So one other principles of liberating structures is that you try to involve everyone and to engage everyone in the group, no matter how large the group might be. So if you just do the one to for all, then it's always in foursomes, and this scales even with hundreds of people. So and you just pick some insights that arose, or some things that must be said, as we call it sometimes. And this is how everyone is engaged in every invitation and every question, and at the same time, all different opinions will be heard and will be or might be might be getting into the whole topic, and all opinions can be
so I can imagine that reduces that kind of social pressure in a way, when people have their independently generated thoughts before they're then sharing as part of larger and larger groups.
One part is activating them. So it's easier to talk in a pair than to talk in front of 200 people. And on the other hand, you can make your point, and if it's important enough, then it will arise through the different scaling levels and will come to the overall solution.
Okay, so then we have the green ones, which are analysis. Is that right? Analyze?
Yeah, like analyze. Yeah, analyzing, diagnosing.
Yep.
Yeah,
so
it's about getting to the really to the bottom. I don't know how to put it. Daniel, can you help?
Sure. So it's basically really finding out what the deepest purpose of your work is, or of a group's work. So that nine asking and why 9 times is meant not literally, but go deeper until you get to something which is really meaningful for the group. So a lot of liberating structures and a lot of the concept is also based on the concept of having a strong purpose, where everything else is built upon. So every card has a purpose, every liberating structure has a purpose. A lot of the methods are just relying on having a clear purpose, or an outspoken purpose at least. And 9 ways helps a group to find their maybe not even common purpose, but speak to the individual purposes of the group and find some commonalities and differences.
Okay, that's good. I've heard of 5 whys before, but is there a reason why it kind of needs to be more than 5? Is that is 9 kind of a special number?
Yeah, I heard Keith saying, because the question comes from time to time, and he said something like, it just goes deeper. But I think that's really one main part. 5 whys and the 9 whys have a different purpose. So 9 whys is for uncovering a group's purpose. 5 whys is for uncovering a root cause for kind of a defect. At least that's the original purpose of 5 whys. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so then we have a help card.
Yeah. That's a lovely one. Heard, seen, respected, because often we don't feel heard, seen, respected, or we just are not heard, seen, respected when working with other people, when interacting with other people. And this card is basically to practice feeling heard, seen, respected by telling a story where you haven't been heard, seen, respected. And while telling the story without being interrupted, you suddenly feel heard, seen, respected. And then you, within a group, explore why it often is that we aren't heard, seen, respected, and then maybe find some other way of interacting or just reflecting on the insights. That's a beautiful one.
Thank you. And then Carsten, do you want to talk through the last couple?
I can do that. Yes, the purple ones is about strategizing things. It's about getting into decisions. What the strategic ways in the future might be. So min specs is something that if you're talking about what do we need to achieve this certain goal, for example, then everyone comes with a couple of ideas or even dozens of ideas, and min specs is about finding the real important ones, so that you can strip down all the ideas and the max specs, as we call them, and getting down to the really important ones. Without you might not succeed in any way. But these are really some not beginner's choice, for example. So and the last one, the plan session, design storyboards. This is what we are using the cards mainly for. So preparing workshops or preparing meetings. How can you do that? Not by just adding structures randomly, but constantly asking what is our goal, what do we want to achieve, what should be the outcome, and then design with the cards to find and click together the most valuable structures to achieve a goal for the workshop.
Okay, thank you. Well, so you have some examples to help us kind of contextualize kind of some of the ways in which you might then use these in anger, I suppose.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Where would you like to start with that?
Let's go to table 2.
Okay.
So accidentally we prepared something on table 2. So we kind of pre-filled this example. We have another one. We have enough time where we do it on the fly. So this would be an example how you would end up. How would the final product look like with the cards? And the example is one of a retrospective. So any retrospective where you look back and have a look at what happened in the last time with your team, with your group, find out what big challenges there were, and then at the end find a couple of solution or action steps how you might want to do things differently in the future. And first off, we're just going to walk you through the goals of a typical retrospective. So in the beginning, we thought it might be useful to activate the participants and to allow them to focus on what happened lately, just to make up your mind about what the next hour is going to be about, and just think about what happened. And then we want to give the participants the ability or the option to get the challenges and the achievements in the room. So we know what big challenges are there. Then we want to find solutions. And in the end, we want to not only find solutions, but also get them into action. So that's the agenda. That has nothing to do with liberating structures. That's just what we are now gonna want to support by using a couple of fittings liberating structures to support each of these goals.
Mm-hmm.
So activation just means we just talked about impromptu networking when we introduced the reddish cards. Activating just means you need everyone in the room to talk at least a little bit to be able to contribute to the workshop in the following hours. And so impromptu networking means that you talk a couple of minutes about a certain question, and this in three times with 3 different people, so that you get a feeling of how the mood or the opinions to a certain topic is in the room, and the invitation is the most important part of a liberating structure. Invitation is the question, what was a big challenge lately, might be an example, or what can we be proud of in the last period. So just a question that is not addressing a certain specific problem yet, but just getting in the mood for the rest of the workshop.
I just added the celebrating part because
mm-hmm.
Shouldn't be only about the challenges. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay.
So second part, get the challenges and achievements in the room. So mostly if you just ask an open question, what have been the challenges in the last 4 weeks, then there will be, I don't know, 2 or 3 people that who just shout out their point of view, which just I don't know, put some groupthink, as we call it, in the room. So the idea is that the people that are not used to talk in front of many people might not be heard with their topics. So the 1 to 4 is a method that just tries to involve everyone. So the invitation could be, what was the biggest challenge? What do we need to tackle? And there are 2 different ways to do it. Just try to focus on one challenge, on the biggest challenge, or if you just want to collect a large amount of topics, then you might also say just write down all the challenges that you were thinking about.
Yeah, and in the spirit of complexity theory, I think you rather would want to focus on the one biggest challenge, which is currently on your mind, and not just collecting everything and then not being able to get your head around the 1,000 post-its you post on the wall when not limiting it. So it's often helpful also when using liberating structures to say what seems to be important right now. And if we have the feeling we didn't touch on everything important, and just do another round instead of collecting everything in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then next, another invitation.
So now we have a couple of challenges, the biggest challenges of a couple of people, which have now been raised to the whole group. So the whole group should be aware of, let's say, five big challenges, and now we want to find solutions. And for that reason, we would split up the group using the discovery and action dialogue. I just briefly talk about this in a second. But the idea is that Every person who thinks that challenge A is the most important just goes into that group. So everybody who thinks challenge B is the most important goes into that group. So we have a couple of groups, and each group does this discovery in action dialogue. And the discovery in action dialogue is just basically 7 questions. They're gonna ask step by step, and they're gonna start with the question. So what is really problematic about our challenge? How do we know that the challenge is present? Do we already contribute to any solution? Why aren't we constantly trying out the solution? Do we know anybody else who already solved that problem, and what did that person do? Do we have any ideas how to solve the problem? What can we do? Whom do we need to involve? So it's a step, very loosely structured, liberating structure, which just invites the group to answer all the questions and come up to solutions which are fitting for themselves. So now we have a couple of solutions, but no action yet. So we thought about using another liberating structure. Carsten, what's that?
Yeah, the 15% solutions. Now that we have certain solutions that we might try to work on, it's often not helpful to try to address all these solutions. So also in complexity theory, it might be valuable to just focus on the solution that in this very moment is enough energy in the room to go for it. So 15 solution means what can you do in your own decision without asking anyone and without having to allocate resources, be it money, time, or other people. So just what can you do to start to make the first step towards the solution we just talked about? So this is not about what is the 100% solution that we try to achieve, which is not going to happen anyway, because something might happen. So it's all about the activating and doing the first step, because the rest of it will follow that first step.
Yeah, excellent. So then I guess in the room then, when you're doing this face to face, or if you're on a large Zoom call, I guess you get a lot of energy kind of building through this process, because people are properly engaged right from the beginning through to the end and beyond, in terms of having not just a voice, but an active involvement about what happens next. So it kind of has parallels for me with the appreciative inquiry kind of methodology, in that sense of being a shared space and a shared project going forward.
Yeah, because it's not about watching responsible people to talk about things and let them go with their tasks to do. It's about taking responsibility for each within this group, and just to always constantly ask what can I contribute to this solution? What might the small step or the small thing be that I can do to help with this problem? So this is this is very activating and giving responsibility to everyone in the group, to involve everyone.
Okay, great. So any questions from anybody who's been listening in at this point? And we'll have a chance in a few moments for any other questions, or anything sort of pressing that's on your mind in relation to this particular example, or what you've heard so far about the liberating structures and the cards. Feel free to either add it into the chat or to unmute if you'd like to just ask away in an old-fashioned way.
I've got a little minor question. It's true that the 1-2-4 rule kind of is not only really popular, but I can see how over a long event it could be used multiple times. And I'm wondering if I mean, I know that in my designs, without having any cards or anything, I can just use 1, 2, 4 rule here and there where it makes sense. And I'm wondering how that works with physical cards and electronic cards. Can you just copy? There we go. He's copying and pasting. What's doing?
I just
That
added
was my
another one.
question.
That's really beneficial that you can just add as many as you want, especially 1 to 4. I totally agree. You need it multiple times. Yeah.
I noticed 1, 2, 4 was actually integrated in one of the later cards. Was a discovery and actions. It was at the end of that as well. So it was useful to see them kind of interwoven.
Yeah, there are some basic structures that are being used in the more elaborated structures as a kind of basic brick to build on.
Great, thank you. So do you want to quickly give us another example of something we might do, or is that going to take too long for us to kind of do that usefully?
I think it would take too long. My suggestion is to improvise a little bit and just show just for a couple of minutes how we would like really work with these cards. So let's assume we came up with this string with these four options for each of the goals, and I'd say let's just think about other options. And also, if somebody in the room is aware of liberating structures, then also just raise your voice. What other liberating structures could be helpful for any of the 4 goals? And we're going to just add a couple of cards, maybe Carsten and I.
Okay, so you're still looking at table 2 at the moment, then?
Yeah, still on table 2.
Okay.
Okay, the other example would take too long, I guess.
Yeah.
So maybe we could also use the user experience fishbowl, for example, to identify the challenges in the room. Gonna get rid of the other 1 to 4 all. Gonna get rid of the invitation for now. And so the goal is to get the challenges in the room. And I think an user experience fishbowl would also a valuable option of having some frontline people who, I don't know, we identified in the beginning that they were talking about their challenges over the last couple of weeks permanently, annoyingly, and now give them the chance to have a conversation. What was challenging? What went bad? What went good? What was catastrophic? To have a direct insight into challenges at hand. That could be a great option. Any other ideas?
Yeah, I would go for the find solutions part. I would add the 25% crowdsourcing structure, which is about generating ideas. So it's about everyone in the room jots down an even crazy idea on a piece of paper, and then you just change cards and do a ranking from 1 to 5 for the idea. So 1 is I'm not going to go with it. It's a really stupid idea, and 5 is I'm all in. I'm going to start tomorrow morning to help you with this idea. And then you do it. You do it a couple of times, and then you add up, and so you end with a list of ideas, which is which is ranked in a way, and then you can just go through the, I don't know, top 3 ideas and discuss how to start it with the 15% solutions in the very end. So just collecting crazy ideas within a group.
Yeah, I think it still would work with 15%. I'm gonna touch on your question in a second.
Yeah, we're just on that, because Emma's just saying that she loves 25-10, and she's done that out in a room with 200 people, and that creates huge energy and movement. And So it's nice to hear. So yeah, we'll touch about how to do that online in a moment, maybe if you have ideas around that. But you're going to say something first around
I think we found kind of way of doing it with the Miro or Miro whiteboard, which includes an app which randomizes the content of the board. So it's pretty close to the original one, but without the fun. But it's a little bit chaotic, which is funny. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? So I'm sort of looking at this. I plan a lot of sessions and do a lot of these types of activities. Would you use the cards in sessions or use the cards to plan the session?
I think I only use them to plan a session, but okay. I think
I was thinking I'd take some of the information off some of the ideas that I've never used before and put that into my session based on, as you said, the sort of objectives of the session or the sort of the bit of the session that I want to focus in on, and then use that within my PowerPoint or the way I present it or facilitate it.
I'm not quite sure if I got the question right.
Sorry, Daniel. So I would probably be using the cards to plan sessions and the ideas and thinking about what I wanted to achieve within a facilitated session. But I wouldn't necessarily put the cards out on the table or use it in a virtual room with a group of people. Is that right, or have I misunderstood?
I think you could use it with the group itself. I mean, you could, as I said, if it's I don't know what qualities the group must have. Maybe it just worked with every group, but I never really tried it out. Let's say we are a group here of all the webinar participants, and we say we want to have a retrospective about the webinar.
Yeah.
And then we align on these 4 goals, and then we jointly find out what might help us to go through the retrospective. So basically, the idea is bring as many people as possible in the design, but often that's so odd because often we expect that facilitators prepare everything. At least that's my understanding of the situation. It's often like somebody prepares something and then everybody else follows. But with these cards, it's totally possible or thinkable that the whole group designs, which is also in the Liberating Structure Carsten mentioned, the design storyboard. It's basically meant to jointly design a meeting before having it together.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm starting to think of other ways now. Great, thank you.
I just, maybe a final idea. When we have the fishbowl, there's a kind of a conversation between the people with the experiences and the rest of the audience, but there's no smooth transition to the 25-10 crowdsourcing. And I often find that 25-10 crowdsourcing needs some kind of reflection that the good ideas get going. And I thought, as we have a lot of time in the retrospective, just to think of putting a conversation cafe in between the fishbowl and the 25-10, which would help the group to wrap their head around the challenges they heard of in a very, I don't know, harmful manner.
Okay, so and that's the longest, so 35 to 60 minutes for that activity.
Yeah, you could do it like in 20 minutes, but it's sometimes helpful to take a little bit more time for conversation cafe.
So of course, one of the advantages of having a deck of cards like this is that freedom to experiment and play, isn't it? So I think that's one of the things that the more familiar you are with Liberating Structures as a suite of resources and these cards, and then the ability to create sticky notes as you've done here within a session to help structure things further or engage an audience further, then I'm sure there's a huge number of different ways that they could be used in different contexts. So I guess from my point of view, I just encourage anybody here who's kind of wanting to experiment, to give it a try and to find ways to make it work for you, whether that's just initially about your planning, or whether there are ways to involve people more actively in that co-creation process. And we've created this as a system to enable that to be more possible when you're working in a digital environment. So what I would say, of course, is that the familiarity with Deckhive and how to use the system is important with that. So if you can play, practice, invite colleagues or friends into a session, first of all, to just experiment, that generally is really well worth doing, because those are the things that can sometimes trip you up if you're not quite sure how to use the technology. And it is really simple, but it's worth playing with. I do want to just spend a couple of minutes at this point, just before we wrap up, just to kind of clarify in terms of the Deckhive system, for those of you who've not seen much of it before. So Liberating Structures is one of the card decks that we have in our library, but we have many others. In fact, if I just leave this session on here for a moment, you can see in the library here, we've got currently, I think, about 36 different decks of cards. So there's all manner of different cards, some picture decks, some question decks, some with a particular topic of focus, around appreciative inquiry or values or strengths or listening skills, for example, emotions, resilience. There's a whole load of different decks there that could be useful in different circumstances, different audiences. So as a subscriber to Deckhive, you get access to all of the decks of cards that are in the library. And so there is that freedom to pick and choose what works for you and to experiment. We do have a 30-day free trial for anyone who's signing up new, so do make the most of that. I recommend you starting that at a point where you're going to have an opportunity to experiment and practice and play. So that's there for you. And at the bottom of the website, you'll also see a number of tutorials that you can access here, which will guide you through some of the basics of the system. So again, a good way to get started. So that's how it works. And the pricing in the UK, the pricing is £10 per month for the starter plan, which gives you the opportunity to activate 5 sessions a month, or up to 5 sessions a month. And by activate, I mean, start a session which allows you to invite other people to come and join you. So there's no limit on the number of people you can have in a session, although you will find that if the group gets too large, that crowd control will be your challenge, not the technology. So technologically, you can invite as many people into a session as you like, but of course, if they're all choosing cards and moving them around, it can get a bit chaotic. So you need to be careful about how you manage that. The unlimited plan is £35 a month, and that allows you to have as many sessions activated in each month as you like. And you can move up and down plans as much as is helpful, or stop at any point when you don't need it for a period of time too. So that's kind of how the system works there. But it's really, the focus of today really was about liberating structures and getting familiar with this deck and how you can use that deck. So before we wrap up, are there any other questions that have come to mind around liberating structures and using them in this way? I'll stop my sharing for a moment. Feel free to unmute if there is anything else that comes to mind. I'm aware that we are due to finish just in a few seconds, so if there are no questions, that's fine.
No question from me, but just to say thank you. Really, really interesting. I happen to have this book sitting beside me for months, but haven't, one of those books, I haven't read it, but
read it.
This helps to bring it to life. So thank you. Really, it's very, very interesting. And thanks, Martin, for facilitating.
Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. We really appreciate you coming along, and equally for those of you who will be watching on the recording. So we'll circulate that as soon as we can. It'll either be at the end of today or tomorrow, I'm sure. So thank you again to Carsten and to Daniel for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time out to share your experience. And if people want to kind of connect with you and keep in touch, is there an easy way for them to do that? Or are you just unreachable?
So what's the easiest way to explain this? Just go to our website, liberatingstructures.de, the German one, there you'll find contact
Excellent.
information.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Nice to see you all.